Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. The Atlantic magazine recently reported that American democracy requires informed citizens, but in many places the industry responsible is withering before our eyes. Local Vermont papers are the heart of our communities, and many are in trouble. Local newspapers have always counted on townspeople to share their stories with their neighbors. Maybe that's you. To talk about local community news and what it takes to be a reporter in your town, we've called on reporter Corey Dawson. Corey is currently the editor of Community News Service, a program at UVM. He has also been teaching a basic course on reporting that he hopes to offer for free in the future. Welcome, Corey, and thank you so much for sharing some of your wisdom about local reporting.
My pleasure. Thanks, Fran.
So let's just start out in general. What is the role of a reporter in society?
The role of the reporter, in a very basic way, is to reveal the basic, the most obtainable version of the truth. This is a term borrowed from Bob Woodward, Carl Bernstein. Your role is to go out there and figure out simply what's going on in the way that can, and explain that in a way that most readers can understand.
And why is news so essential to a thriving democracy? There's been a lot of dialogue about this, but how do you speak to that essential element of democracy that demands a good news service?
In order for people to make good decisions about their lives, they need to have good information. So you can't make a good decision at the ballot box, for example, if you know nothing about candidates or if you know nothing about the decisions you're going to vote on. A lot of that happens, especially in Vermont at the local level. You know, we have really great newspapers that cover state politics very well, that cover major issues, but especially in Vermont, where decisions are made by select boards, by school boards, more so than in many other states. Local news is essential to help people make those decisions that really affect their lives. Things like, hiring and firing a police chief, or whether we should get a new ambulance in town. All those decisions happen at the local level.
Great. And yeah, we do have VT Digger, which you worked for, and other that cover more, but they're broader, they're statewide. So local is a whole nother piece of business. So what are the qualities of a reporter for a local paper?
I think first you need to be very civic-minded. A big issue that we see when people want to start writing for their local papers is they may have a lot of experience with people who they want to report on, right? They may have friends on the select board, they may have friends on the school board. So it's important that first they understand their conflicts, they understand how to report this in a fair way so that their readers trust them. I mean, that's really your North Star as a reporter. You need to always be working for your readers as opposed to, say, the people you're interviewing, your sources, perhaps a political leaning that you might have, a policy preference that you might have. Your goal is to inform your readers so that they can make really good decisions. It is not to placate people. It is not to make people happy or unhappy. It's really just to get the best information out there.
Really, really good point, because in a small town, everybody knows each other. So
right.
You have to kind of take a step back as a reporter. Do people have to have a degree to be a reporter for a local paper?
No, absolutely not. There's a lot of reporters actually believe that journalism is more akin to a trade than it is to like a profession, like being a doctor or a lawyer. And for a long time, that's there's constant debates whether you should go to journalism school. You can write clearly, you can report facts as long as you have your head in the right space. If you understand why you're there and why you're doing it, and if you can put things in context for your readers, that's really the basic pieces. There's and you get, the more you do it, the better you get. And that's kind of, I want to give people in this course that I'm teaching, I want to give people the confidence to be able to do that and to kind of dispel any perhaps barriers that they may believe are in front of them, whether real or not.
Right. So as you say in a trade, the more you do, the better you get. So is writing for news different from, how is it different from other kinds of writing?
So I teach it in a very basic way. You should, every single line that you have in a print story, in a written story, should be based on a fact. You should be able to point to that fact. You should be able to understand, to use an art term, the provenance of the fact. You should know, you should be able to attribute it. Whenever I edit stories from, especially my undergrad students, but also from students who are just starting, I will ask them to attribute everything, even though it looks clunky in a news story, so that I can ask them, where did this come from? And so they need to know where it came from as well. So the point of good news writing is to make sure that everything is based in facts, but also it needs to be extremely accessible. Reporters should write really at a fifth grade reading level. This should be as accessible to someone who's in grade school up to people, anybody really should be able to access this news.
So what makes a good news story? I mean, if you're talking to everybody, story becomes a very important element. What makes a good news story?
Right. A lot of people start when they want to write a news story, they actually want to write about a topic instead of a story. So a lot of people want to write about the environment, or perhaps policing, right? These aren't stories, these are topics. A story is, say, Smug's Resort loses their snowmaking abilities this year, or they're finding snowmaking to be more expensive. I don't know if this is true or not, but this is an example. That's a story. Perhaps a police officer is fired after use of a major use of force incident. Those are stories. Those are obtainable. The basic idea is that you should expand the public's understanding just a little bit. If you do that, then I think you've accomplished something as a reporter.
So is that, when you talk about is something newsworthy, is that what you're getting at there? How will it affect your town? How will it affect people?
Right. And you think about things like, what's the impact, and how great is the impact? Like, for example, a major weather event, Hurricane Irene, was so newsworthy because it affected so many people. A tax increase in town, even a little one can add a burden to people's tax bill and can make it harder for them to put food on the table. If you think about things like conflicts are obviously a classic element to have in any story, fiction or nonfiction. When you're thinking about news stories, perhaps a conflict on a local board about two different paths that they could do to spend, for example, many school boards are talking, or many select boards are talking about how to spend American Rescue Plan money from the federal government to help COVID. There's many things that towns could do, right? They could support their build roads, they could expand broadband access, they can do many things. So there's going to be debates about what people should do with this money. And so what's newsworthy that a reporter can write about is understanding the merits of those arguments, asking experts to explain what can have the greatest impact, what can help people, and trying to ask people about the outcomes. That can create an excellent story. And anyone can do that in any of our 250 towns.
Absolutely. And it also brings me back to these, what are the top ethical issues to consider? Because you might go, well, I think this is the best idea. But as a reporter, you can't really go there.
No, absolutely not. No, you need to only talk with people who, talk with your sources. Let your sources speak for themselves. You will develop, especially as you start writing, it's pretty easy to see in black and white what is editorializing in your story and what is not. Some reporters really don't engage that in the public sphere with their opinions. My Twitter's pretty quiet, and a lot of reporters feel that way as well. But a lot of people come into this as a way of public service, for example, and some professions, lead into that. Well, there's many examples of people being in government or being in public service and then moving into journalism as well, because the ethos is pretty similar.
Right. So clearly interviewing is important. What makes a good news interview, and why is interviewing so important?
The golden rule for me if we're doing an interview with somebody is don't leave confused. if you are interviewing somebody and you have the ability to have somebody who's knowledgeable about a topic in front of you, and you have that opportunity, use it, right? Understand the issue as best you can. Because if you don't understand the issue as a reporter, there's no way that you're going to be able to explain it in a news story or to your readers. So don't leave confused. The other thing that a lot of folks miss when doing interviews is giving the interviewee the space to say what they want to say. Usually, when we're if we're arranging an interview like this one here, we've talked about things that perhaps I want to say, or things that I think aren't important. Give your interviewee the space, because they're probably thinking about that, and it may change your story. Be open to that change.
Right. So quickly about photojournalism. Photography is very important to what you do, and we have a few from the news service. What do you look for? What's a good photo to use as we're telling a story?
So the strongest photos, and the ones that win Pulitzer Prizes, are of people doing newsworthy things, and usually they're emoting. Usually they're in the moment. They're feeling what you're writing about. These are good news photos are almost always of people, because good stories are about people. Every now and again there's a building that's being knocked down or something like that, but that's the best news. The best news photos are of people doing newsworthy things and emoting. In the everyday, getting a photo in your story really just helps get eyes on your story.
Sure, even if it's a building.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So quickly, before we're almost out of time, tell us about your course and how folks can sign up.
Sure. So this is the quick genesis of the course. Is when I was talking with a lot of newspaper editors that we work with, they said, hey, we have a lot of civic-minded people who want to contribute to their papers, but they feel like there's barriers. So this course will just kind of give it's a crash course in journalism and reporting. It's what I teach to my students. You can sign up on communitynews.net. There's a list that you can just put your email in and a little bit about you, and we'll reach out when we do the next one, hopefully later this spring or in the summer. Okay,
Corey, thank you so much. And we'd like to encourage people to contact their local paper and/or Corey to learn more about being a reporter in your town. Thank you so much, Corey.
Thanks, ma'am.
And thank you for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. Stay well. Support your local paper.